friends. You know, all these books, you see books throughout your life that are fiction, right? They're novels, or that's what they say. But what you know, for one reason or another, is that the outline of the story is true or something, and that the book is a vehicle for kind of getting the word out without being explicit about its source and some aspects of it. Well, I'd like to play a game like that with you tonight. I'd like to suggest that it would be an interesting novel. It would be an interesting story if what was really going on in the world right now at the highest level was that there was a major negotiation going on. And it's a major negotiation between, say, the white hats and the black hats, or whatever. All the black hats. You know, people call them different things, the Illuminati, whatever, the deep state. This is kind of this story, they would be really at the highest level. And so it would be above the deep state. It would be, at the highest level of those who have had control of this planet. And kind of the situation would be that they are losing, that they're near the end, and they're in extremis, and they've lost significant members of their group who have been kind of picked off, and maybe you've had clones or body doubles or other kind of things who are playing the parts of these major world figures, and those who are really in control are watching this all happen, and they know that they're running out of steam. They've tried all kinds of things. They thought that they would get a whole lot of people killed if they did this COVID and the COVID vaccine, and they certainly got some killed, but everybody wouldn't take the vaccine, and it just didn't quite work out the way they wanted to. And so now they're just really down to the end, and they're running out of time. And they have got kind of one more hand of cards in the poker than this poker game of the highest level to play. And they know that if they don't win in this hand of poker, that it is going to be curtains. It's going to be over with for them in a really big way. And so they're in the kind of final negotiations with the other guys who have driven things up to this point. They have mounted a very sophisticated offense, and they have rooted out within the structure of that been running the world for a long time, rooted out a whole lot of the key people, and they've eliminated them in one way or another, and kind of the writings on the wall for the guys who have always throughout their life and for generations beforehand have controlled everything on this planet with impunity, arrogance. They've just, they've run it all, and now they see that things are turning against them, and everything that they've tried in the past is not quite working the way that it needed to work. And so you're into this kind of final negotiation. They're trying to make the final bet. They're trying to capture this last chance to kind of stay alive rather than being hung by the nearest lamppost or whatever the end point would be to what's been going on. But they're not just humans. They are humans, but they've run this thing for a long time, having direct kind of input and contact with otherworldly sources and powers, principalities and powers, as in the biblical sense. And so they've got some extraordinary kind of technology that's available to them. So they're not out of quite out of the ball game yet. I mean, they still got some significant capabilities, but again, the kind of the writing's on the wall, and they got one last shot at this thing. Now, almost by definition, they're sociopaths. They really are not concerned about humans. They have no empathy, compassion, any of those kinds of things. I mean, they're in this thing for whatever they can get out of it, money, power, whatever it turns out to be. Sometimes, in some cases, it might even be some otherworldly kind of relationships and such. But in any case, the well-being of the planet and the people on the planet are not part of their equation, and so they're really prepared to do about anything that they can in order to kind of save their life here at the last minute, because they know that if they don't pull this one off, it is really going to be really sad for them all. And so they come to the table and they say, "I'll tell you what we're willing to do." And I should also say that the guys on the other side, the white hats, also have a significant amount of resources and capabilities, not the same ones. And they also have relationships of other worldly groups who have great capabilities, and they've been around a lot, and so they can do a lot of things. They can be very helpful in this situation, and so it's coming down to the end, and the good guys, if you will, say to the bad guys, is this is over with. So the good guys say to the bad guys that there's a fundamental kind of principle in situations like this, and best exemplified by Sun Tzu, in his writings about the art of war. And Sun Tzu says that whenever you've got your enemy cornered, you always give them a way to escape. Because if they're cornered, they are going to fight to the end, and they will fight with far more ferocity and fearsomeness than if you give them a way to escape. If there is a path out of the corner or a way and so the black hats come to the table, and they're all kind of puffed up, and they say, if we don't get what we want, we're going to blow this whole thing up. And we've got the capability to do that. We control major governments. We control the leaders of major governments. And we could get China and Russia, or China and Iran, or something to literally do an EMP blast over the top of the United States. I mean, we have extraordinary missiles now that fly many times the speed of sound and are impossible for you to intercept. And we can wipe out the whole electrical system and the internet, and we could do that. We've made it clear. We've explained how that we'd be able to do that. And the Russians say, if you keep pushing us into this the way you've been pushing us, we have the capability with our submarines to launch very large torpedoes that swim at 200 miles an hour under the ocean, and they have nuclear weapons devices at the end on their tip. And if we blew one of these off of the Atlantic coast of the United States, it would generate a tsunami wave that was 200 feet tall and was running at 100 miles an hour toward the coast. And if you want to know the truth, we've got 6 of our submarines stationed off the east coast of the United States. And if you squeeze us, and if you push us too far, if this becomes existential for us, we have the capability to literally eliminate every city of any size all the way down the North American coast, and certainly completely run over the top of Florida, there would be nothing left. And they threaten and they say, this is what we're going to do. If you think you're going to put us in Guantanamo and take care and whatever kind of thing, you're going down with us because we're going to take you down. And the white guys, the good guys, the white hats, they come to the table and they say, tell you what we're going to do. We've got the capability to move you all off to another planet. And we can populate that planet with just all the slaves and sex toys that you would like, and to provide palatial homes and all kinds of things. I mean, think of it as kind of being in exile with on an island somewhere that you can't get off of, but boy, you'll have a good time while you're there. And if you chose not to execute all these weapons and these strategies that you have, what we would be willing to do is to arrange for you to depart the area safely to another place, to where for the rest of your life you would live enjoying all of the things that you've learned to enjoy. And so the negotiation goes back and forth and back and forth. And so the black hats are certainly, I mean, they control the media, they control all of that. The major narrative on that side, and they are looking for leverage. They're looking for a way to increase their position in this negotiation. And they believe that the way to do that is to generate as much fear as they can within the population of the world, such that the other side feels obliged to take whatever deal that they're willing to accept. And so they start a campaign, a media campaign that would raise the fear on this planet in a hurry over the possibilities of the kinds of things that they, in fact, know that they can do. And so they start to leak all this information about EMPs and the likelihood that it's going to happen, and that the Chinese have got this hypersonic weapon that they can do, and so on. And they get the Americans and all excited, and they get the Russians to come out in the public and say, well, we've sent 6 of our submarines out into the Atlantic Ocean. We've got one that's in the Caribbean. We're sending some of our ships into the harbor in Havana. What we're showing you is that we still have significant capability to do what we say that we're going to do. And by the way, we'll leave if by the way we make a deal and you welsh on this deal in some way and you don't do what you agreed to do for us, then we're going to leave some people behind who, when we give the word, that they would generate significant problems for you afterwards. And so now you've got the kind of the negotiations set up. And you've got on one side the guys who are saying, yeah, we'll give you a happy life. The white hats want this to be, over with. That 3 times before, these otherworldly forces have attempted to take over this planet and they've not been successful. And this time, what we have to really needs to happen is it really needs to get cleaned up. And so you don't want any lingerers that are hanging out, any fifth column kind of folks. And so it's not as simple as just sending these guys somewhere else, but you really got to clean up those that are underground and other kind of places. There's quite a contingent that they have been part of this producing this planet, this world the way it is. At the same time, remember that white hats have got teams and forces and other things that are systematically picking off and eliminating significant capabilities that the black hats have had all this time. And so they're not without capabilities, and the black hats know that. And so now you've set this whole thing up. And so now the black hats start seeding, kind of preparing the battlefield, if you will. In military terms, before any major kind of battle, there is a systematic, predictable kind of process that land armies and air forces and everything go through before the land forces are launched to go take whatever geography, whatever piece of land that they're going after. Historically, by the way, there have essentially been no military successes that have not essentially been the function of land forces, that where the army or the Marines or some other kind of thing have ultimately taken over and captured the land. And so the preparation of the battlefield part is about getting it ready for the soldiers, the Marines and others to go on land. Now, the way that's done in conventional military terms is that they start with bombing, aerial bombing, to try to take out major kind of components of the system, weaken the structures, take out the communications and the power plants and the bridges and all those kinds of things, so that you significantly weaken the other side. And it's exactly what the Russians have done in Ukraine. And then you bring in the artillery. And what the artillery largely does, not exclusively, because a lot of it right now is being used at very long distances against kind of strategic targets, but in tactical kind of terms, what they do is they begin to just rake the area in front of where the assault is going to be, and do everything possible to kill as many people as possible. And in this particular case, they're doing a lot of drones, so they're going over to see where the targets are, so that they can then take out the people that are embedded over there. But that's the idea. The idea is that you prepare the battlefield before you launch the infantry. And in this little scenario story that we're talking about here, the black hats, let's prepare the battlefield, because if we need to do this, so we want to be prepared. And so they began a systematic process, which they started long ago, to pull the threads in the fabric of all of the social kind of order in the country and where they're going. They want to make the people sick. They want to make them afraid. They want them to lose their sense of the cohesion of who they are, or their sense of self and purpose. They want to do all of these things are part of kind of preparing the battlefield. And so they have been doing that for a long time, because they've been looking forward to this time when they would finally kind of resolve everything. And but now they're in this negotiation, and they feel like they really have to up this whole narrative business, because they need to generate a great deal of uncertainty and fear if they are going to succeed in this negotiations. And then they need to have the guys on the other side, they need them to have a bunch of other problems other than just trying to figure out how to ship them off the planet. They need to have a lot of pressure from below that's causing them a lot of concern. And so they begin to generate and release some rather specific kind of indications about what they're prepared to do and what the effects would be, hoping at one hand that perhaps that it would convince or assure that the other side would absolutely do what they said that they would do and give them a way out, and that there would be no recriminations in the process. And so they start generating through their capabilities, and in some cases, very sophisticated, unconventional capabilities to be able to influence human thought and so on, to be able to build a scenario that kind of looks like this. I mean, they don't have much time. And so they start to put dates on this thing to say, let's make it clear what's going to happen here. And they say by the 31st of August that there is no government. There is no government in the United States. There is no government in Canada. There's unlikely to be any government in Mexico, just speaking of this part of the world. And by the way, you plant these ideas, and so that all over the world, they have this similar kind of understanding that there's something that is really big and almost existential here that happens, and that the food supply gets largely destroyed, that there's the inability to travel, that at the time when this all was initiated, if you were not at home, you would never get home again. If you were any distance away, it would be impossible for you to do that. There would be no medicines or anything like that. And so it would very rapidly disintegrate, and it would be a very serious kind of event, a situation. There would be great problems with water and floods. And then you say that on the 11th of November, if you want to take another day, by then things have really settled in and it will really be bad, and you will have large numbers of people who will have died, that you will not be able again to have any transportation. You'll be scrambling very hard to try to get food and get ready for the winter. There's great chaos and uncertainty about how you get from here to there. And it's huge and serious and biblical, if you will, kind of situation. If you then go to, say, the 21st of January, 2025, what the world is going to look like then is that it is really going to be a mess, but there is a small number who are starting to get together and starting to work on trying to rebuild the new world. But there's no medicines. The food supplies are very, very in short supply. There's, again, no transportation, and it is a very serious, extraordinary kind of situation that effectively sets the stage for the rebuilding of a new world. And you start to feed those ideas into the populace, and so that they show up, first of all, an intuitional kind of thing, people who are looking out into the future and trying to make sense out of it. And it starts to show up in large numbers of people all over the place, and to where if you looked at this and did conventional kind of analysis, you'd say, wow, it's coming from everywhere. And there must be something there. I mean, I've never seen a time like this where 30 different people all came up with the same kind of thing. It would become clear and obvious that there would be rather short 6-month long period of time. If this scenario played out, if this was the story, then it would be an extraordinary blow to civilization and humanity as we understand it and the way we've been organized. And those who weren't prepared would have a very hard time if it was even possible to succeed and to survive throughout this all. And so you've now set up the kind of the basis for a very interesting and memorable period of time in the life on this planet, and that the what has been worked on, planned for a long period of time is now coming to a head, and uh, that those who have considered these kinds of things and had planned for these kinds of things are now in the position to be able to kind of survive and support themselves or move to wherever they need to move or whatever it is, and just so that you got the basis for building a new core group of people who are building this new world and possibilities that of course a deal gets made. And if deal gets made and they all start disappearing and they go away never to return, then what you have is a kind of amazing opportunity to be built in a whole new way with infrastructure largely intact, and that what many of us have hoped for would be very far easier to accomplish than it would otherwise. So that's an interesting scenario. It seems to me that kind of that those sets of possibilities are really merit thinking about. I think if I were you, that I would start to think about those kinds of options and those kinds of possibilities and what you might do in that kind of a either of those kind of two situations. Because if in fact a positive one shows up, then we are going to have to move quickly to try to move into and build a new world. If the negative side of that scenario would happen, then it would be much harder to do, but possible, of course, but only if you're prepared and if you're in the right place at the right time and so on. So I would just suggest you think about that a little bit because there isn't much, if this story turned out to be reasonable, and the negative aspects of it to predominate, then there's not much time between now and the end of August to be able to position yourself so that you can effectively respond to whatever the situation is that shows up. And I would just like to leave you with that for right now. We'll come back and revisit this certainly in the future. But it seems to me that we are approaching an extraordinary time that merits the best of what we can bring to the table. And only way to do that is to start to think about it and start to do something to effectively prepare for whatever might show up. So thanks.